Shaquille O'Neal's day was like any other, until he spotted a well-dressed millionaire shaking hands with his daughter on the street. But it wasn't just the handshake. There was something in the man's eyes, something hungry, that made Shaq's blood boil with fear and rage. His heart pounded as he watched, and in that moment, he knew something was terribly wrong. What Shaq did next to that man would leave you speechless. Before continuing this story, let us know in comment section. Where are you watching from today? Let's move on to the story. The Florida sun filtered softly through the blinds of the O'Neal household, casting warm, golden light across the kitchen countertops. The smell of fresh eggs, turkey bacon, and toasted bread lingered in the air, mixing with the faint citrus of a just-peeled orange. Shaquille O'Neal stood at the stove, wearing a loose gray hoodie and basketball shorts. His tall frame moved with surprising gentleness as he flipped a pancake with ease. His beard was neatly trimmed, and though there were a few new gray hairs showing, his energy was solid, calm. A man built like a giant, but with the heart of a teddy bear when it came to one person, his daughter. "Layla," he called, his deep voice carrying up the stairs. "You got 5 minutes before I start eating your pancakes." From upstairs came a sleepy groan, then footsteps. Down the stairs floated Layla O'Neal, 16, with deep brown skin like polished mahogany and soft braids tied up in a messy bun. She wore a simple hoodie and jeans, her backpack slung over one shoulder. A notebook peeked out, worn edges, doodles on the cover. It went everywhere with her. Shaq grinned when he saw her. "Well, well, the princess has arrived. Look out, y'all." Layla rolled her eyes and chuckled. "I'm not a princess, Dad." He gave her a playful wink. "You're right. You're the queen." She sat at the counter, eyeing the plate in front of her. "You put cinnamon in these again?" "Of course. It's the secret to greatness," Shaq said proudly. "You think I got to the NBA on regular pancakes?" Layla smiled and took a bite. Her eyes widened a little. "Okay. This one's actually good." He clutched his chest, like he'd been shot. "What? Actually good? That's the best you got?" She laughed again. Her laugh was light but shorter than usual. Shaq noticed it, but just barely. They ate together, chatting about small things. Layla's art project, the girl in her class who brought a snake to school, the teacher who couldn't figure out the projector. All normal. But Shaq's eyes kept flicking to her face. There was something, a cloud. Her smile faded quickly after each laugh, her eyes distant even when she looked at him. "Everything good, baby?" he asked gently. Layla hesitated. "Yeah, just school's a lot right now, college stuff." Shaq nodded slowly. "You know, you don't gotta do this all alone. You got me, you got your mom, and your annoying cousin Derek if you really get desperate." She smiled, lips tight. "I know, Dad." A beat passed. Then she added, "Actually, I forgot to tell you. I'm meeting someone after school today. It's kind of a career thing. A guy from this program that gives scholarships. He messaged me online, said he wanted to talk in person." Shaq raised an eyebrow. "What program?" "It's called Future Rising or something like that," she said quickly. "It sounds legit. He said he's helped girls get into good schools, art scholarships, that kind of stuff." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "You've met him before?" Layla shook her head. "Number. But he sounded nice. I looked him up. He's a businessman or something. Maurice Blake." Shaq's jaw shifted slightly. He nodded, slow. "Where y'all meeting?" "Downtown, near the bookstore on 6th Street. "You want me to come with?" Layla's face changed. Her shoulders tensed just slightly. "No, Dad, it's okay. It's just a short talk." He said it'd be like 20 minutes. He didn't argue. He didn't want to embarrass her. He just watched her eyes. They flicked away toward the clock. "You sure about this?" he asked again. She nodded. "Yeah, it's a good opportunity, and I need something good right now." That last part hit him. Deep. He reached across the counter and touched her hand. You already got something good. You're it. Layla looked down at her plate. A soft smile touched her lips, but her fingers were cold in his. In the car, they listened to music like always. Old school R&B. Layla hummed along, staring out the window. Shaq drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, stealing glances at her between lights. You remember that guy from Boys II Men? He said suddenly. Which one? The one with the deep voice. That was me in high school. I used to make girls faint in the hallway with just a, "Hey, girl." Layla laughed. A real laugh this time. Dad, stop lying. Shaq grinned. Okay, maybe not faint, but they definitely stumbled. As they pulled into the school parking lot, he reached out and tugged her hoodie up just a bit. You got this. Whatever it is today, you handle it like the queen you are. Layla turned to him, smiled faintly. Thanks, Dad. She opened the door, slung her backpack over her shoulder, and hesitated. Just for a second. Her eyes met his. They were full of something unsaid. Not fear exactly. More like weight. Shaq leaned closer. You okay? She gave a quick nod. Yeah, see you after school. He watched her walk away. She looked strong on the outside, calm. But he could feel it. Something was off. Something deep inside his chest stirred, but he pushed it down. She was growing up. Maybe it was just nerves. The bell rang. Kids rushed in all directions. And Shaq drove away, unaware that his quiet morning was about to become the beginning of something much bigger, something that would shake his world. The day moved slow. It was one of those warm Florida afternoons where the air felt thick with something unspoken. Shaq was sitting in his home office, scrolling through emails and half listening to a podcast about mentorship and youth development. His phone buzzed beside him. He glanced at the screen, expecting a meeting reminder, or maybe a meme from one of his sons. But it wasn't that. Saw your daughter talking to some man in a suit near 6th. Didn't look right. The message came from his longtime friend, Kenny D., a retired police officer and father of 3 girls. He wasn't one to stir panic. If Kenny messaged, it meant something. Shaq sat upright, every muscle in his frame suddenly tense. His fingers tapped back quickly. You sure it was her? A reply came fast. Positive. She looked uneasy, man. Not scared, but not right. The dude had his hand on her shoulder. She didn't look happy. Shaq didn't answer. He didn't need to. He was already grabbing his keys. 6th Street was busy. Not chaotic, but always alive. Little cafes, boutique shops, parked luxury cars that stood out against old brick buildings. Shaq's Escalade rolled to a slow stop at the corner, his eyes scanning every cluster of people. His heart pounded harder than it had during any championship game. Then he saw them. Across the street, near a black Maserati with tinted windows, stood Layla. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest. Her sketchbook was clutched like a shield. Next to her stood a tall, well-groomed black man, probably in his mid-40s, wearing a crisp navy blue suit, brown leather shoes that gleamed, and designer glasses. He looked successful, charismatic, maybe even charming to some. But Shaq's eyes weren't fooled by the polished surface. He saw it. The hand on Layla's shoulder. The fake, toothy smile. Layla's forced nods. Her eyes, downcast, flickering, unsure. Shaq's blood turned to fire. He crossed the street fast, every step heavy with purpose. Layla looked up and froze when she saw him. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wasn't sure whether to smile or run. The man turned, confused at first, then surprised. Layla, Shaq said, his voice even but thunderous. Who is this? The man held out a hand, like he didn't notice the storm in Shaq's eyes. Mr. O'Neal, Maurice Blake. I run a mentorship foundation here in the city. Layla and I were just having a brief conversation about her future. Shaq ignored the hand. Layla stepped back slightly. Her lips parted, but no words came. Shaq's eyes never left Blake. And you reached out to her directly? Through Instagram. Without speaking to a parent first? Blake chuckled. A smooth, calculated sound. I understand how it might look, but my organization focuses on underserved youth. I saw her art, read her story. I only meant to encourage her. Shaq's jaw tightened. Encourage her how? By meeting her alone in the street without anyone knowing. Blake adjusted his cufflinks. The mask was slipping. Just a crack. I assure you my intentions are professional. Layla looked up at her father, her eyes filling with something between fear and guilt. Shaq turned to her, gently. Baby girl, you okay? Tears welled in her eyes. Her voice cracked as she said, I didn't want to come, but he kept messaging. Said it would help my future. Said if I didn't show up, I'd miss out. I didn't know what to do. Shaq's face changed instantly. His whole body moved in front of her, now fully facing Blake. The suit didn't move. Back up, Shaq said quietly. You stay right here. A few passers-by started to notice the scene. Phones were raised. The energy in the air shifted. Blake lifted his hands. This is getting out of hand. I suggest... You don't suggest anything, Shaq snapped. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to make Blake blink hard. You've been messaging my daughter. You lured her here. You lied about your intentions. That's manipulation. You think wearing a suit makes it okay? Layla was crying now, quietly. Her hand gripped Shaq's hoodie from behind like a lifeline. A man from the coffee shop nearby stepped closer. You want me to call the cops? Shaq didn't look away from Blake. Already on it, he pulled out his phone. The screen showed he was already on the line with Kenny. Stay where you are, he said again to Blake, who now looked less like a mentor and more like a cornered animal. Still calm, but his eyes darted for exits. The sirens came within minutes. Layla sat in the back of a cruiser, wrapped in a blanket though the air was warm. Blake was placed in handcuffs. Just for questioning, the officer said, but it felt heavier than that. Shaq rode with Layla to the station. His massive hand covered hers the whole ride, silently reminding her, You're not alone. You were never alone. It was 4:12 p.m. Shaq had been pacing near the garage at home, one hand gripping his phone, the other rubbing his bald head. Layla hadn't answered his last message. He had texted, Just checking in. All good? No reply. He stared at the screen again. Nothing. Then his phone buzzed. Layla. Yeah, all good. Still talking. I'll be home by 6. Short. No emoji, no warmth. That wasn't like her. Shaq's stomach tightened. His instincts were starting to speak louder now. He called her. No answer. Once. Twice. Then voicemail. He didn't wait any longer. He grabbed his car keys, threw on a light jacket, and drove straight to 6th Street. The sun was setting low behind the buildings, casting long shadows on the pavement. Downtown was busy. People walking, couples laughing outside cafes, college kids on skateboards. Shaq pulled into a side street and parked. The bookstore Layla mentioned was just a block away. He walked fast, his long strides cutting through the crowd. Despite his size, he moved like a man with purpose, not loud, not threatening. Just steady. As he reached the bookstore corner, he slowed down. There were benches out front. A mural of a rising phoenix painted on the brick wall. A few people sat nearby, one reading, one on a phone, and another. That's when Shaq saw her. Layla. She was sitting on the edge of a wooden bench, her backpack at her feet. Next to her sat a man. He was older, mid-40s, maybe early 50s, with slicked back black hair, pale skin, and a trimmed goatee. He wore a gray coat and a smile that didn't match his eyes. Shaq stopped across the street watching. The man leaned slightly toward Layla as he spoke, not touching her, but close enough. Too close. Layla nodded politely. Her hands were clenched in her lap, Shaq's jaw locked. Something about the way she sat, the tension in her shoulders, how she leaned just barely away from the man, her forced little smiles. It wasn't right. She wasn't relaxed. She was performing. Suddenly, Layla glanced across the street. She saw Shaq, and her eyes changed. For half a second, her face lit up. Relief flooded her expression, but then, just as fast, she looked down, back at her lap, like she was pretending not to notice him. That hit him hard. His heartbeat quickened. Why did she hide her reaction? Why didn't she wave? Shaq's eyes locked on the man in the gray coat. The man said something else, then reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. He showed it to Layla, pointing to something. She glanced at it and nodded slowly. Her fingers gripped the edge of the bench tighter. Shaq stepped off the curb. He crossed the street slowly, eyes locked on Layla. His size caught attention. People stepped aside as he walked. He was calm, but there was weight in every step. When he got close, he said calmly, "Hey, baby girl." Layla looked up. Her face was blank for a moment, then a smile broke through. Too quick, too wide. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked, trying to sound surprised. But her voice shook. The man in the gray coat turned and smiled. "Ah, Mr. O'Neal, I presume." His voice was smooth, like warm butter covering something rotten. Shaq nodded once, expression unreadable. "That's me. You are?" The man stood up, holding out a hand. "Maurice Blake. I was just telling your daughter about our scholarship programs. Very promising young lady." Shaq didn't take his hand. He looked down at Layla. "You okay?" Layla nodded, fast. Yeah, I'm good." But her foot tapped the ground under the bench, nervous rhythm. Her left eye twitched just slightly. Shaq caught it all. He turned back to Maurice. "You meet a lot of girls like this? Alone?" Maurice chuckled softly. "Well, we encourage independence in our applicants. Most of them are responsible enough to meet professionals without needing, how shall I put it, parental supervision." Shaq stepped closer, just an inch. But it made the man blink. "There's a difference," Shaq said quietly, "between encouraging independence and isolating kids." Maurice's smile didn't falter, but the edges of his eyes tightened. "I'm sure you're a protective father, Mr. O'Neal. But we're just here to give these kids a future." Shaq's eyes stayed cold. "Her future don't come from secret meetings or private messages. If you want to talk about school, you go through the school. You don't DM a kid." Layla looked between them. Her breathing slowed. She felt safer now, but she was still on edge. Maurice looked at her. "Well, I think we've had a productive conversation. You have my card, yes?" Layla nodded. He turned back to Shaq. "It was a pleasure. Have a good evening." Shaq didn't respond. He just stood there until the man in the gray coat walked away. Calm, composed, but faster than before. Shaq watched him until he turned the corner and disappeared. Only then did he look at Layla. "You're shaking," he said softly. Layla swallowed hard. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know how to tell you. He messaged me like a month ago, said he worked with schools. It sounded real, until today." Shaq crouched in front of her, massive hands on her shoulders. "Did he touch you?" She shook her head. "Did he ask you to go anywhere?" Layla hesitated. "He said there's a follow-up meeting next week. He said he'd send a car. But I wasn't going to go. I swear I was going to tell you. I just—" Shaq wrapped his arms around her, tight. "You ain't got to carry this alone, not ever." She buried her face in his chest. "I'm sorry." You did nothing wrong. But as he held her, Shaq's eyes were still watching the street. That man's face. That name, that fake smile. He knew something was off, and he wasn't letting it go. That night, the house was quiet. Shaq sat in his home office, lights low, laptop open in front of him, a pen rolling slowly between his fingers. Layla was asleep upstairs, wrapped up in her fuzzy blanket with a heating pad on her stomach. Her favorite stuffed owl, Ollie, was tucked under one arm. But Shaq couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the man's face again. That fake, polite smile, that calm voice. Maurice Blake. Shaq typed the name into Google. Thousands of results came up. Some about a motivational speaker, some about a corporate trainer, a few about a guy involved in youth mentorship programs. Different states, same name. He narrowed it down. Maurice Blake Scholarship Education, Schoolgirls Atlanta. 2 hits. Both were obscure. One was an article from a small blog site, dated 3 years ago, titled, "Local Parent Raises Concerns Over Unregistered Education Recruiter." Shaq clicked. The blog was plain. White background, black text, but the details. A man named Maurice Blake approached my daughter outside her high school, claiming to represent a scholarship initiative. No documentation. No contact with the school. He messaged her privately on Instagram weeks before. We contacted the police, but were told there was no evidence of a crime. Be careful. Ask questions. Don't assume it's legit just because someone dresses nice and talks well. Shaq leaned back. His gut had been right. By morning, he was already on the phone with Layla's school. The front desk transferred him 3 times before he got to the assistant principal. "Yes, Mr. O'Neal," the woman said in a brisk voice. "We've heard of Mr. Blake. He's come by our school once or twice, but he's never been officially approved by the district. We've asked him not to engage students off campus." Shaq's voice was calm but heavy. "Then why is he messaging 14-year-old girls after school hours?" Silence. "Did you report it?" he asked. Another pause. "We asked him to stop. That's all we're legally allowed to do unless a parent files a complaint." Shaq didn't answer. He ended the call, jaw clenched. Then he opened a new tab and typed into Instagram at maurice.futurepath. Sure enough, the account popped up. Clean, professional looking. Profile picture of the same man in a suit. A bunch of reels talking about opportunity, breaking generational poverty, and unlocking your future. But then, he checked the followers. Almost all were young girls, most between 13 and 16. He clicked through the profiles. Their bios were full of emojis, school names, little quotes like future nurse or class of 2028. One DM caught Shaq's eye in a screenshot posted by a girl on her story from 2 months ago. "You seem like a driven young woman. Ever think about going to college early?" Shaq's blood went cold. He picked up his phone and called an old friend. "Yo," came the voice on the other end. "Haven't heard from you in months." "What's up?" "Julian," Shaq said. "I need a favor. Real quiet. You still do freelance background checks?" "Still got the license," Julian replied. "Who you trying to look into?" Shaq gave him the name. "Maurice Blake. Says he runs scholarships. Might be using it to get close to underage girls." Julian whistled. "That's serious. You go to the cops?" "Not yet. I want facts first." "I'll get on it," Julian promised. "Give me 48 hours. That afternoon, Layla came downstairs, eyes sleepy. "Morning," she said. Shaq was cooking eggs. He looked over. "You sleep okay?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, better with you here." He slid a plate in front of her. "I want you to tell me if he contacts you again. No matter what, you understand?" "I blocked him," she said. "On everything." Shaq exhaled, then reached across the table and gently squeezed her hand. "Good girl. Layla looked up at him, eyes soft. Are you mad? Not at you, he said. At the system. At people who think they can hide behind words and fake smiles. She looked down. It's scary how normal he seemed. Evil usually does. That night, Shaq received a text from Julian. Got a few things. You need to see this in person. He drove over immediately. Julian lived in a small townhouse, with stacks of files and monitors everywhere. He was ex-police but got tired of bureaucracy. He liked digging up truths people tried to bury. He handed Shaq a printed sheet. Maurice Blake isn't his real name. Shaq's eyes narrowed. Real name's Caleb Morris. Changed it legally 5 years ago. Used to live in North Carolina. Registered sex offender. Shaq's pulse quickened. What was the charge? Julian clicked on a folder and pulled up an arrest record. Unlawful communication with a minor. Charges dropped due to lack of evidence, but... He clicked again, showing a second page. Restraining orders filed by 3 different families between 2018 and 2021. All had teenage daughters. Shaq's face darkened. And the school didn't know this? Julian shrugged. He changed his name. Clean appearance, smart talk, no active warrants. Slipped through the cracks. Shaq stood up, pacing. We need to do something. Julian raised an eyebrow. You thinking what I'm thinking? I want every parent to know, every school. I want this man watched. Julian nodded. You want it quiet or public? Shaq looked at the wall, mind racing. Then he turned slowly. Both. By the next morning, Shaq had a plan. He wasn't going to wait for some school board meeting or rely on the police to maybe care. This man, Caleb Morris, a.k.a. Maurice Blake, was too smooth, too practiced. He had done this before. He'd do it again. But Shaq knew something Blake didn't. He had a network. It started with a phone call. Jackie, Shaq said into the phone, I need your help. Jackie Thomas had been the vice principal at his old high school. Now she worked with a nonprofit that trained parents and teachers to recognize signs of abuse and manipulation. Say no more, she said. What's happening? Shaq explained everything, from Layla's messages to Julian's findings. There was a long silence. Then Jackie said, We've been hearing whispers about men like that. They approach vulnerable kids under the radar, especially girls of color, girls from single-parent homes. They look for cracks in the armor. Shaq's voice dropped. I want to expose him, not just him. The whole pattern, Jackie replied. Then you'll need more than facts. You'll need mothers. By the end of the week, Shaq and Jackie had formed what they quietly called the Silent Network, a group of mothers, a few fathers, teachers, and community organizers. No public rallies. No viral campaigns, yet. Just tight circles of watchers and warners. They created group chats. They held living room meetings. They sent anonymous emails to school principals, attaching the true identity of Maurice Blake, Caleb Morris, complete with the restraining orders, the arrest record, and screenshots of his current online behavior. The response was mixed. Some schools acted immediately, blocking him from ever stepping near their buildings. Others ignored it. One principal replied to the email with a cold line. Unless he's actively breaking a law, our hands are tied. Shaq wanted to scream, but he didn't. He stayed focused. One night, Shaq met with a woman named Marisol Rivera, a single mother whose daughter had also received a DM from Mr. Blake. They sat at a small diner on the west side of town, plates untouched. He told her she was gifted, Marisol whispered, tears in her eyes. Said he saw something special in her. She was so excited. Thought someone finally noticed her. Shaq leaned in. Did she ever meet him in person? Marisol nodded slowly. Once. He asked her to come alone, said it was a private scholarship briefing. Thank God she told me. Shaq's stomach churned. Did you report it? She wiped her eyes. They said no crime was committed. Shaq reached across the table, his big hand covering hers. You're not alone anymore. Over the next few days, more stories surfaced. Some families chose to stay anonymous. Others wanted to fight. Julian created a burner website, stopcalebmorris.org, filled with court records, testimonies, warnings, and a growing list of schools he'd visited. Shaq funded it quietly. They didn't advertise it, but parents shared it like wildfire. In church basements, in PTA Zoom calls, in school parking lots. Shaq began speaking softly at community meetings, never using Caleb's name directly. Instead, he spoke about patterns, groomers, how kindness could be a mask. His voice was calm, steady, but the fire behind it was unmistakable. Then came the first threat. A private number called Julian's phone late one night. A deep voice said, "You're ruining a good man's reputation. Take the site down." Julian recorded it and sent it to Shaq. Shaq didn't flinch. Instead, he doubled down. He had a contact at a local radio station, Diana Lee, a trusted voice in Atlanta's black community. He met her off-air in a quiet booth late one evening. "I can't say his name yet," Shaq said, "but I want people to hear the signs, understand the pattern." Diana nodded. "You want to give people eyes." "Exactly." That weekend, she aired a special program titled When Predators Wear Suits, a quiet, chilling hour of anonymous stories, expert insights, and subtle warnings about scholarship scams, private messaging, and the way predators target overlooked kids. The episode blew up. The next morning, Shaq's inbox was full. One message stood out. "He messaged my daughter last night. He called her intelligent and mature for her age. Thank you for the warning. I reported it." Meanwhile, Caleb, still going by Maurice Blake, noticed something was changing. Schools stopped returning his calls. 3 mothers approached him at a coffee shop and told him to stay away from their daughters. His Instagram account lost hundreds of followers. And one night, his car had a note under the wiper. "We see you. You won't get another child." Shaq didn't stop. He wasn't interested in scaring the man. He was interested in cutting off every path he used to reach kids. So he kept going, every meeting, every message, every whisper. Because silence, when organized, can become thunder. The air was different now. What began as quiet warnings and late-night emails had turned into something harder to ignore. The silent network had grown. The website had thousands of views. Caleb's once flawless image as Maurice Blake was beginning to crack, and Shaq knew what was coming. Started with an email. A legal firm out of New York, Grayson and Bell, LLP. Subject: Cease and desist notice re. Defamation to Julian Harris. Our client, Mr. Maurice Blake, has been subject to ongoing harassment, false accusations, and libelous content published by your platform. If defamatory material is not removed immediately, we will pursue legal action to the fullest extent. Julian stared at the screen, then showed it to Shaq. "You scared?" he asked. Shaq leaned back, arms folded across his chest. "Only scared of staying quiet." They didn't take the site down. But the pressure didn't stop. Caleb launched a counter-campaign. He posted a video on his Instagram. A clean white shirt, dim, serious lighting, a well-rehearsed face. "I've dedicated my life to helping underserved youth. I've given scholarships, mentorship, and time, only to be attacked by people who don't know me, spreading lies with no evidence. I won't let false accusations destroy what I've built." Thousands of his followers commented. "We believe in you, Mr. Blake. Stay strong. Haters always come for real ones. This gotta be jealousy. You're doing too much good." But the comments were mixed now. Some people weren't buying it anymore. Others posted links to the court records, the testimonies, the radio interview. Still, Caleb had money, lawyers, followers. Shaq had something else: truth and witnesses. Layla came forward. It was her decision, no pressure. Just one day after seeing Caleb's video, she walked into Shaq's gym while he was training kids. She held a paper in her hand, a letter. Her voice shook as she read it aloud. "He messaged me when I was 14, told me I was different, said I was smart, not like the others. He asked if I wanted to join a secret project. I didn't tell anyone, because he made me feel like it was my fault. But it wasn't. He was wrong. I know that now." Shaq hugged her afterward, said nothing, just let her cry into his chest. After Layla, two more girls stepped forward. An older woman, named Alicia Monroe, came to a community event and revealed that she had known Caleb in college. She had once dated him. She looked the crowd in the eye and said, "He always liked girls who were too young. We didn't talk about it back then. But I should have. I should have said something sooner." People were listening now. A local news anchor got wind of the story. She requested an interview with Shaq. He didn't go live. Instead, he sat down for a pre-recorded segment with Jackie and Layla, her face blurred. He didn't name Caleb directly, but the warning was loud and clear. Predators hide behind good reputations. They use opportunity, trust, silence. And when they feel exposed, they use lawyers, money, fear. But the truth doesn't scare. It just waits for light. The light finally came. Someone leaked a police report from 3 years ago. An open case against Caleb Morris for inappropriate online contact with a minor. The girl's name was redacted, but the details were unmistakable. He'd settled, quietly, no admission of guilt. But the stain was permanent now. His sponsorships began to fall through. A school canceled an event he was scheduled to speak at. A former nonprofit partner pulled his image from their website. That night, Shaq got a message from a burner number. "You think you've won, but you don't know who I really am. You've just made it worse for the kids you say you care about. Now it's war." Shaq stared at the screen, saved the message, forwarded it to Julian, then deleted it from his phone. He didn't flinch. 2 days later, Layla's mom got a call at work from an unknown number. It was a deep voice, trying to scare her. That was the last straw. Shaq called in a favor. An old friend from the FBI, someone he'd played ball with during a charity event years ago, agreed to quietly open a background file. "I can't promise anything official," the man said, "but I'll start digging. And if there's dirt on this guy, we'll find it." Shaq met with Layla and her mom the next evening. "I'm sorry he's fighting back like this," he said. "But you're not alone. He's desperate now. That means he's losing." Layla looked up at him, strong, tired, brave. "Let him come," she said. "I've already lived through worse. I'm not scared anymore." Caleb was spiraling. Not in public, never there. On the surface, he still smiled for photos, posted motivational quotes, and wore those tailored suits. But the truth was closing in, and behind the glass doors of his uptown condo, there were empty bottles, ripped-up papers, and mirrors he refused to look into. His lawyer warned him. "There are too many threads now. The police are reopening the old settlement case. One more girl goes public and we're done." Caleb slammed his fist into the marble countertop. His voice cracked for the first time in years. "They don't know who I am. I built this damn city. They need me." But power, no matter how loud, couldn't quiet evidence. Shaq met with the FBI contact, Agent Ronald Banks, broad-shouldered, calm, with a habit of looking people in the eye like he could read hearts. Caleb Morris paid a private security firm to scrub parts of his digital trail, but we still found something. He slid a USB across the table. Chat logs, dozens of them, aliases used by Caleb to message underage girls over the past 6 years. One of the screen names matched the ID Layla had once mentioned. That was the last piece. Julian uploaded everything: screenshots, legal documents, the police report, testimonies, voice notes. All sanitized for safety, but real. They dropped it like a bomb at midnight with a single caption. You believed the brand. Now read the truth. The website nearly crashed from traffic. National news picked it up by morning. Caleb Morris exposed trended for hours. Schools, programs, boards. Everyone that once worked with him began issuing statements. We are shocked. We are terminating our partnership effective immediately. We stand with survivors. But Shaq didn't gloat. He just went back to training the kids. Then came the arrest warrant. It wasn't a flashy raid. No helicopters, no handcuffs in front of cameras. Just two unmarked black cars pulling up to Caleb's private gym. Two agents with files and hard expressions. He looked at them like they were below him. You have no right. None of this will stick. One agent replied calmly, You're welcome to say that to the judge. Shaq arrived early. He didn't sit in front. He didn't speak. He just watched. Layla was there, flanked by her mom and Jackie. Caleb was clean-shaven, suited, and smiling for the cameras. But his eyes were darting like a man trying to find the exits. The judge was a woman named Valerie Chen. No nonsense, former prosecutor, known for hating media stunts. And when Caleb's lawyer tried to dismiss the case as an online smear campaign, Judge Chen raised a single brow. Mr. Morris has been accused by 6 different women, over 3 separate decades. This is not the internet. This is a court of law. You could hear Caleb's throat tighten. But it wasn't over. Caleb still had money. He posted bail, hired a crisis PR team, held a press conference claiming innocence and cancel culture persecution. But no one was buying it anymore. One of his former assistants came forward next, then a boy from one of his programs, and then a girl from another city entirely. The house of cards collapsed fast. Shaq received a letter, handwritten, from Caleb's mother. It read, I saw your interview. I believe you. I raised him better than this. But I also turned away from signs when I should have spoken up. Thank you for doing what I didn't have the courage to do. Shaq held the letter for a long time, said nothing, just placed it in a drawer with the others, the silent thanks that never made headlines. In the final hearing, the judge ordered Caleb's phone and cloud storage unlocked. The contents were worse than anyone expected. He didn't just groom girls. He tracked them. He threatened them. In one file, he referred to Layla by a nickname he used in private texts. That was the nail in the coffin. Caleb Morris was convicted on multiple counts of child endangerment, coercion, and digital exploitation. He didn't look up as the sentence was read. 15 years. No parole. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Shaq. How does it feel? One asked. Shaq looked out at the crowd. He saw Layla smiling, Jackie holding her hand. Julian recording everything quietly. He said, This wasn't about me. It was about listening, believing, and standing up when it's easier to walk away. Then he walked off the steps. No fanfare, just peace. 3 months later. The city felt different, not because Caleb was gone, but because his silence was. People started talking more. Teachers noticed girls speaking up. Parents asked better questions. Coaches, mentors, principals. They paid closer attention. But for Shaq, the work was just beginning. He bought the old warehouse, the one across from the old boxing gym where he first trained as a kid. Abandoned, rusted signs, cracked pavement. To everyone else, it was an eyesore. To Shaq, it was potential. He poured his savings in, not for profit, not for headlines, but to build what Caleb Morris pretended to have, a real safe haven. He called it the Bridge. A place where kids don't have to pretend they're okay, where healing is just as important as hoop dreams. Layla started visiting every weekend. At first, just to watch. then to help with art therapy sessions, then to lead them. She found her voice in painting, filling blank canvases with things too heavy for words. One day, she painted a little girl in a yellow hoodie standing in front of a storm, but her arms were stretched wide open. Jackie stood next to her, quietly wiping tears. Shaq had it framed, hung it at the entrance of the center. Julian was back on his feet, not as a trainer, but as a speaker. He began touring schools, talking about power, abuse, and the importance of listening to survivors. He didn't shout. He didn't preach. He just told the truth. And when he stood on those stages, people leaned in, because they knew the fire he came through. The grand opening of the bridge was quiet. No red carpet, no influencers. Just folding chairs, homemade food, and a chalkboard sign that read, "You are safe. You are seen. You are stronger than you know." Kids came. Volunteers came. Donors came without logos or demands. It was real. Finally real. One evening, a girl Shaq didn't recognize approached him after a workshop. Maybe 12 years old, nervous, holding something behind her back. "Are you the one who believed Layla?" He nodded slowly. She handed him a folded notebook page with shaking fingers. "I think you're the first grown-up I trust." Shaq bent down, took the page, read it. A story. Hair in dark, honest, brave. He didn't say anything at first, just looked her in the eye. "Thank you for sharing that with me. You're not alone anymore," she cried. Not loudly, just enough. That night, he sat on the steps of the bridge long after everyone had left, holding that paper like it was gold. Because to him, it was. Meanwhile, inside prison walls, Caleb Morris sat alone in a plain cell. No designer suits, no applause, no name on buildings. He wrote letters, dozens. None were answered. One day he asked the chaplain, "Do people ever come back from this?" The chaplain looked at him and said gently, "Only if they're willing to tell the truth, all of it." But Caleb wasn't ready. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Back in the city, the bridge kept growing. Shaq brought in counselors, built a recording studio, started a mentorship program called Stand Tall. He didn't run it like a celebrity. He ran it like a man who once watched someone fall and said never again. Layla was standing on the second-floor balcony of the bridge, looking down at a group of kids laughing in the courtyard. Shaq walked up beside her. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" he asked. She smiled. "That the world's still broken." He nodded. "Yeah, but this part. We're fixing it." They stood there for a moment, quiet. Then Layla turned to him. "Thank you, Dad." He looked at her, eyes soft. "Number, thank you for showing me how to fight right." Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know about your thoughts in the comment section. Also, subscribe the channel for daily stories notification.